Just because something is legally right doesn't mean it's morally right. So says Jane Velez-Mitchell when she says legally right doesn't mean what we eat is morally right. Now, she doesn't take claim to that saying, but she does take claim to the fact that she's an advocate, an activist, and a voice for the voiceless. In today's episode, you're in for a great treat as you hear the insights from a woman who's been out there really speaking on behalf of the animals for quite some time. So stick around.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
So, Jane, I have to say that I am so excited to introduce you to my community, which they probably already know who you are because you're such an activist. You're like super vegan. And I was really excited to bring you onto the show because I actually have heard you in Clubhouse. I've watched a lot of the things that you do on Facebook, all over social media. Talk to us about how you got involved in veganism, first of all, and then activism.
Well, I was raised in a pescatarian, mostly pescatarian household. My mom and dad were born in 1916, believe it or not, even before women got the right to vote. My mom was born on an island in Puerto Rico called Vieques, which is an island right outside the main island, but it is part of the Commonwealth. And when she was a child, she had a pig, and she thought that pig was her friend and her companion, but the pig was a food pig. And one day when she was very young, she came home and the pig had been slaughtered and she fainted. And when she woke up, she shunned meat. So she came to New York right at the height of the Great Depression, formed a very successful Latin dance troupe that played hotels in the Caribbean, United States, and Canada. And she met my dad, who was Irish American, an advertising executive. And she kind of convinced him to shun meat as well. Now, we kind of thought of ourselves as vegetarians growing up. I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, but we did eat fish. And I recalled recently doing a story about duck rescue that we went to a restaurant called John Duck and ate duck at one point, which was really kind of disappointing to me. I just remember that literally the other day from something many decades ago. But suffice it to say, we did not bring meat into the house. We really realized that chickens are animals, the cows are animals. So I was on the journey. Then I went to NYU, graduated with a degree in broadcast journalism, and I started working in news as a reporter anchor in Fort Myers, Florida, Minneapolis, Philadelphia. I'd say 40 years ago, right around the time that PETA was getting started, I got a video sent to me of terrible head injury experiments being done at a local university on baboons. And I saw it and I said, this is just evil, evil. The so-called scientists were laughing. They were listening to rock music as they bashed these baboons' heads in. And I said, this is pure evil. I don't know how I'm going to stop it, but I have to do something. My conscience tells me that there is really something wrong. And to this day, all these animals being tortured for no reason in these laboratories when we're not rats, we don't have tails, we don't have claws, we don't have snouts. My dogs would die if they ate chocolate. I eat chocolate all the time. Unfortunately, I try not to, but sneaks in. So flash forward, I worked in Philadelphia. I worked in New York City for 12 years as a reporter anchor. Then I got a job out in LA as a weekday anchor. And in walks Howard Lyman, a fourth generation cattle rancher who had gotten very ill and had made a pact with God. God, if you get me out of the surgery, I will reveal the horrors of my industry. He was a guy who famously went on Oprah and revealed what was going on. And she said that just stopped me cold from eating another burger. And the cattleman sued her. And this was a big hullabaloo, like more than 2 decades ago. So he walked in to do an interview with me. I was an anchor at Paramount Studios at a local TV station here in LA. And after the interview, he and his publicist walked up to me and they said, we hear you're a vegetarian. By that time, I was a vegetarian. I didn't eat fish or any of that. And I said, yes. And they said, do you eat dairy? And I kind of hung my head because he had just talked about the mother's forcibly impregnated, the baby's ripped from them, the boys either shot or put in veal crates, and, all the horrors. And I hung my head and I said, yes, I do. And he and his publicist pointed their finger right at my nose and they said, liquid meat, like that. And that was the moment I went vegan. And that was about a quarter of a century ago. I don't know exactly when, but it was when he was doing his rounds.
Right.
And I never looked back. About a month later, somebody accidentally put Parmesan cheese on something I was eating and I spat it out because I used to love Parmesan cheese. It takes at least a month for your taste buds to go back to their factory settings. And so for people who say, oh, I tried this and I hated it, I tried this. Well, every piece of meat you ate in your whole life you love? No. You're going to have preferences within any realm, right? Every single piece of candy I ever ate in my life, I don't love. Maybe I like cherry versus orange, right? And so it's the same thing with plant-based products. Find the ones you like. I happen to like Tafudi cream cheese, the vegan cream cheese. I tried another brand the other day. Not crazy about it. Doesn't mean, oh, I've got to go back to eating cream cheese from the breast milk of cows. No. So that's how I went vegan. And then after that, I started getting into using my platform as a journalist to spread the word about veganism, animal rights, and now climate change, because look what's happening.
Well, and it's so interesting because on a Clubhouse recently, you said something about that we all have to be activists in our own way, whatever our platform is. And mine happens to be my podcast show, my blog, and social media. And I'm also an author, and I'm working on a book right now about how to market a vegan business, because I went plant-based initially, and it was 6 months in that I was at the grocery store walking by the meat department, and I literally felt this. I had a visceral response to the pain and anguish and the suffering. And you talk a lot about that. You actually have been at demonstrations. You really raised the awareness. And for the people who think that's radical, what do you say to that?
Well, I'll kill you. How do you like that? Oh, well, okay. I'll try to do it nicely. Is that okay? No, killing. There's no, they say there's no mess you can't clean up. Well, there's one. When you kill a living being, there's no bringing that individual back. Right. We all love our dogs and cats. If I walked across the street and kill your dog, you call the police. Right. But yet we can torture and kill 80 billion animals every year. And we think, oh, there's no consequences. The essence of all evil is that some suffering doesn't count. Okay. That is the essence of all evil. I didn't make that up. Somebody much smarter than me made that up. And the other thing that is a truism is that the only thing that's required for evil to triumph is for otherwise good people to do nothing, to look the other way, right? It's not my problem. It's not my business. So if you consider yourself a loving person, a kind person, a compassionate person, then don't co-sign this extraordinary cruelty and suffering. And just because you hire somebody else to do it doesn't let you off the hook, right? Morally. I was a crime reporter for many years. You don't have to be the person pulling the trigger to get convicted of murder. If you were involved in the plot, if you went to the house, if you were there when the person you are conspiring with and associating with pulled the trigger, you can be convicted of murder. It's the same thing. And so we like to keep it out of our thoughts. But these animals didn't fall from trees. If you go to a Save Movement vigil, which I do, and you see these cows and pigs and chickens arriving to the slaughterhouse, they know what's going on. Right. Sometimes they're suffering from riding in an open air truck, either extreme cold or extreme heat. They're frothing at the mouth. They've got sores on their bodies. Their limbs are broken. I mean, you would have to be completely a sociopath not to see that this is suffering, intense and terrible suffering. What gives you the right to inflict that? It's legal, but let's think back in time about many things that were legal, okay? That shouldn't have been legal.
Absolutely.
And so legal right is different than moral right. And now it's coming back to haunt us. You know how animal eating is going to end? When animal agriculture has so devastated our planet, which in the process of doing right now with extreme heat, drought, and extreme floods. I'm in California. It's the largest dairy state in the nation. And forget about the news media. They're all pretty much owned by the meat, dairy, and pharmaceutical industry, the advertisers. So you're not going to hear this on the mainstream media. Liberal, conservative, or in between. They don't talk about it. They can't even say the word slaughterhouse. During COVID, when slaughterhouse workers were dying of COVID, the news wouldn't even say the word slaughterhouse. They said the processing facilities.
Right.
They don't want to remind you that animals are being tortured and killed in those facilities. So what's going to happen now, and I'm going to make a prediction that it's unfortunate. I don't want to see any suffering, but if people can't get it because it's horribly cruel, because it's bad for health, bad for your health, processed meat is officially cancer causing, according to the World Health Organization. Red meat is a likely carcinogen. Additionally, prior to COVID, heart disease, which is caused generally by cholesterol plaque clogging the arteries to heart, killed 1 out of every 4 people. The pandemic, I don't care if it was in a lab or in the wet slaughter market. Either way, it's animal abuse, either laboratory animal abuse with the picking up of these bats from all over the place to test them, or it was an animal who was tortured in a wet market. It's a zoonotic illness. So all of these problems are coming back to haunt us. Well, guess what's happening? Climate change, which is in a large part caused by animal agriculture, deforesting the planet. Mm-hmm. Trees absorb carbon. Without the trees, we have no way to absorb, or fewer ways to absorb carbon, and the temperature rises. Now we're seeing massive crop failure. Massive crop failure. I have articles that I've been printing out. A dairy farmer said, she's going to have to, quote unquote, liquidate her cows. Can you imagine? Because of the rising price, because business is business. Then you have wheat farmers and other farmers going, oh my gosh, the crops, devastation. We are 7.9 billion humans giving food to 80 billion animals who are eating a good percentage of the food. More than 75% of all soy is going to farm animals. So when the crops fail and we realize, oh my gosh, it's not just children in the third world dying of starvation, which they're doing every second as we speak, because we're giving all the food to the farmed animals who are not on this planet because they're making love. They are forcibly impregnated into existence. You know what that's called. Starts with R. And so when suddenly it comes to our front door, just like the fires and the drought and the wildfires and the floods are coming to our front door, then when we go into the grocery store and we see empty shelves because of crop failure, that's when we're going to say, oh, wait, either we eat or the farmed animals eat. That's the end game. Right. I don't want to see that. I'd like to see people wake up before that.
Well, let's talk about waking up, because, we've got this whole pandemic situation going on, and, there's people, a lot of people are contracting it. And yet, there's this big fear mongering going on that if you contract it, you're going to end up in the hospital and yada, yada, and I'm not going to talk pro or anti-vax.
That subject.
But what I think is so interesting is, what I think is interesting is the fact that there are 4 primary causes for complications, obesity being the first one, heart disease, high blood pressure. There's like some direct links to complications that are directly linked to what people consume. So, and which has to do with animal products. So what do you say to people about that when they just don't want to listen to it? And they make jokes about, I'm going to have my BLT and pork tastes so good. And yet people are getting so sick. What do you say about that?
Well, I don't want to get into the weeds on that, because that is a vortex, and we all know about that big divide. I will just say I'm vaccinated. And what I will say is that when I was in my disease of alcoholism, and I'm 26 years sober, one day at a time, thank you.
37 years for me. So,
congrats. Yay. Well, you beat me.
The world is a safer place because we both are.
Exactly. And I wasn't one of those isolators. I always hear about people who say, I was at home isolating. No, I was putting on a performance art at parties. So in any case, we don't want to hear what we need to hear until we have to hit We have to hit bottom.
Right.
And the question is it a high bottom where you go, oh, wow, this isn't working for me? Or is it a low bottom where you have that gift of desperation where you're like, oh my God, my world's falling apart. So it's just like addiction. And I do believe meat and dairy is an addiction. And it's an addiction that is actively promoted by the US government and by obviously advertisers and industry. And to a large degree, the pharmaceutical industry is the meat and dairy industry, because you wouldn't need the erectile dysfunction pills and the cholesterol pills and it seems like they want everybody to identify with their disease today. Oh, right. I've got this, I've got that, I've got to take a pill. You look at the commercials, this is madness. When did it go from doctors tell you what's wrong and what you should maybe take to feel better to, hey, go and ask your doctor for this pill and this pill.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, there's no better customer than an addict. We all know that. Addict has to go back over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one's not enough. A thousand's not enough. One's too many.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that meat and dairy is addictive. Fast food is addictive. Okay. We're biologically pre-programmed to crave sugar, salt, and fat to get us through times of famine.
Mm-hmm.
So what do the fast food companies do? They pack their food with sugar, salt, and fat. The very things that are addictive, because we are biologically programmed to crave those things so that we can survive. But then our instincts for those things are working overtime. And so you go to one of these fast food joints and you have a burger with cheese and a milkshake and all the day's calories in one swoop. Next thing you know, 45 minutes later, an hour, you want it again. Why? It's just like alcohol. It's
Absolutely.
just like drugs. And so we are living, I wrote a book called Addict Nation. We're living in an addict nation, an addictogenic culture where we have to have growth of our corporations. How do you get growth? You get people addicted to a product that they have to have more and more of. I can't have enough. It's not enough. And then we have the repercussions. So we've got to wake up. We've got to start realizing that the people who are sexualizing meat and dairy, I couldn't even watch the Olympics. The commercials just with this dripping meat and all of this stuff. Tom Brady, he's plant-based and he's doing a Subway commercial saying this turkey looks good. Don't you have enough money, Tom Brady?
Right.
Dear God.
Right.
So we are morally bankrupt and we are in the throes of a horrible addiction. And the question is, when are we going to hit bottom? Are we going to hit bottom when you're rolled out on a gurney after having a heart attack? Or are you going to hit bottom when there's no food left because we've destroyed plant agriculture because we are accelerating climate change with industrialized animal agriculture? What's it going to take for people to wake up? I'd say it's a scale, just like the Kinsey scale. Some people have woken up. Some people are waking up slowly. Some people are trying to go veganish. And some people are adamant, and you'll see this with every social justice movement. There are people who, no matter what, they are not going to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
So let's talk about that a little. And it's so interesting because I actually broke my wrist about 6 weeks ago, and it was a freak accident. It wasn't because I had brittle bones. It was because something hit me on the back of the head. I face planted on the cement and immediately broke my wrist. It was one of those big tents at an open event. It was the Juneteenth event. And when I went to emergency, well, first they took me in an ambulance. I went to emergency, and then I had to go have my surgery, have a plate put in. And it was so interesting, the questions they would ask me. What medications are you on? I said, I'm not on any. And they said, well, what about blood thinners? I'm not on blood thinners. And they couldn't believe that a 67-year-old woman wouldn't be taking this kind of stuff. You know, it's like we're so conditioned to believe that we need the pharmaceuticals because a lot of people, they have become addicted to that through the behaviors. But what can people do to start on the journey of eating healthier and becoming aware about what goes on with factory farms? Because the thing that really gets me is when people say, oh, I don't want to watch the films. I don't want to know because then I won't eat meat. And it's like, that's kind of the point. So what can you advise to people to actually start moving in a healthier direction and a more aware direction?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's not a sacrifice. It's an adventure. We do a daily vegan cooking show on Lunch Break Live. By the way, visit janeunchained.com. There are thousands of vegan recipes. We have gone live every single day since Facebook Live started, doing a different vegan recipe every day. We do it on Facebook, then we do a story on it. It's a printable recipe, and it's fun. You know, you're only killing five or six animals, okay? Cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, lambs, primarily. There are tens of thousands of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains that you can array, and legumes in an infinite number of combinations. And if you want that special something that is your favorite comfort food, it's vegan now. Just this week, we did a story on Panda Express has the vegan orange chicken. And I went there. I live in Marina Del Rey. I went to the nearest Marina Del Rey because it's test marketed in New York and LA, and I ordered it. Delicious. And I'm not just saying that. It was really good. And you can have it with the brown rice and the greens. And so it's a vegan, entirely vegan thing. And it was really good. And a woman who just went vegan, who had used to eat the actual chicken, she said, this is better than the chicken one. This quote unquote chicken that's vegan, made with Beyond Meat, which is an El Segundo company. I did a tour with the amazing Ethan Brown, who is the CEO and visionary of Beyond Meat. He gave me a tour of Beyond Meat back in 2017 before they went public. What a nice guy. Anyway, Beyond Meat is amazing. And so there's no sacrifice involved. If you want, the burgers are great. If you want something really meaty, Impossible, if you like, I prefer the Beyond Meat burger because it's not quite as meaty, but the meat eaters I know love the Impossible burger because it tastes just like meat.
Right.
The vegan cheeses, Miyoko's, Faliahara, Tree Life. I mean, the vegan ice creams are extraordinary. So you've got the cheese. People are addicted to cheese now. There's great vegan cheese. And find the one you like. If you try one, try another one, just like you do with other products. What, they try to put us in a catch-22. Well, what do you eat? Grass? So we said, no, anything you eat. So we make vegan pastries and vegan hamburgers and vegan tofurkey, Thanksgiving alternatives. And they go, oh, that's processed. Now, the people who are saying processed, and it's just processed, meaning mushed up peas and other vegetables. Okay. There's a million examples of things that we don't think of as processed that are processed in regular cottage cheese. It's processed. Okay. Regular cheese is processed. So don't throw processed in our face when you've been processing everything. And we're just trying to give you the vegan alternatives of your processed food. And there's no sacrifice. It's an adventure. You feel better because your gut biome is determined by what you put. Your gut biome determines your serotonin levels. Your serotonin levels determine your mood. And so you want to be happy, eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. I can tell you myself, as a vegan, I have been eating a lot healthier. As a result of the pandemic, I decided to use it as a time for change. I can't ask people to improve if I'm not working on myself. So I started ordering vegetables delivered. They'll be delivered tonight, every Monday night. So I've been cooking a lot more vegetables. Guess what? I enjoy it. I mix the vegetables up. I choose different ones every time. I'm making very creative dishes, very colorful, very delicious. The taste is often from the spices. We're not even carnivores. If we were carnivores, when you saw roadkill on the side of the street, you do what my little guys do. They salivate, they try to go after it. Okay. They try to go after it. Right, Rico?
And Rico's a rescue, right?
He's a rescue from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, my wife and I, we rescue. We have horses, chickens, we have 2 dogs, and we have a cat, all rescues. So, and I know we're running out of time, which is, I have to have you back on the show for sure. Jane, how do people get in touch with you? I want to make sure that they know how they can reach you.
Well, please go to Jane Unchained, janeunchained.com, and you can get our newsletter. We just sent out the vegan chicken from Panda Express. Go out and buy it in New York and LA. And if you know somebody in New York or LA, because I'll tell you why, it's a test. if it's successful here, it'll go nationwide. And then wherever you are, you can get it too. So we've got to get everybody to support that. And so you sign up for our newsletter. You can also watch me at facebook.com/Jane Velez-Mitchell. We do a daily vegan cooking show. We have tons of videos. And you can also watch our fancy studio cooking show, New Day, New Chef, on Amazon Prime. It's a new day, so you can be a new chef, New Day, New Chef. And you can watch our documentary, Countdown to Year Zero, on Amazon Prime.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And Jane, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. This is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility. Thank you for watching, and go out and do what's right by not eating the animals. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.